Welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week, Shabbos Shuvah, the first Shabbos of the year, we have the incredible privilege to read Parshas Vayelech. And in a very moving statement, the Parsha opens, Vayelech Moshe, Vayidaber es hadvarim ha'el al kol Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu walked, he went, and he spoke the following words to the Jewish people. Vayomer aleim, he said to them, Ben mea ve'esrim shanim hayom, today I'm 120 years old, lo uchal od latseis v'lavo, I can no longer come and go. V'Hashem amar elai, and Hashem said to me, lo sa'avor es hayardein hazeh. Moshe Rabbeinu essentially telling the people, I'm 120, this is the end of the line. This is where my journey ends. Your journey will continue, but my journey ends here. I'm 120, lo ucha od latseis v'lavo. And beautifully Rashi says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm 120 years, Anochi, I am 120 years, Hayom, today. And Rashi HaKadosh says, Hayom malu yomai ushnosai. Biyom hazeh noladati, biyom zeh amos. That Moshe Rabbeinu was saying literally, today is my birthday. Today is my birthday. Ben me'eh ve'esim shanam hayom. I'm 120 years old today. Today I was born. Today is my birthday. And today is also going to be the day that I'm going to die. Moshe Rabbeinu is literally speaking to Klal Yisrael on the last day of his life. And the Lubavitch Rebbe Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha makes an amazing observation. He says, how does the parsha start? The parsha begins, Vayelech Moshe. And Moshe Rabbeinu went. And Moshe Rabbeinu walked. You know, the Mefarshim all pick up on something very interesting, which is the Torah is telling us that Moshe Rabbeinu went somewhere. There's only one problem. The Torah doesn't tell us where he went. Where are you going, Moshe? Where are you going? You're going to the Mishkan, you're going to the Beis Medrash, you're going to see the people, and their Mefarshim give many different insights. And the Rebbe says, it's not important where he was going. The Torah is teaching us an incredible yesod. Vayelech Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu was journeying, that Moshe Rabbeinu was growing, that Moshe Rabbeinu was moving. And even though he just says in the next phrase, Ben Meah ve'esim shanim hayom, I'm 120 years old today. I'm going to die today. Today is the last day of my life. Even though he knew it was his last day on this earth, Vayelech Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu was journeying forward. Moshe Rabbeinu was going to listen to the words of the Rebbe. He says, Gam biyomo ha'acharon shel Moshe. Even on the last day of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, hayom shebo egia l'shleimus hu lo histapek bekach elo sha'af laleches ulehiskandem od va'od. An incredible lesson that even when Moshe Rabbeinu reached the age of 120, and even though it was literally the last day on this earth, Moshe Rabbeinu was a pretty accomplished guy. He was a pretty accomplished man. He did a lot. He's faced down a Pharaoh. He freed an enslaved people, split the Yam Suf. Of course, he was the agent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, went up to the mountain, spent a total of 120 days with the Ribbon Shalom, got the first Luchos, the second Luchos, challenge after challenge, adversity after, saves them in the aftermath of the golden calf, saves them from the Raglim. One would have thought that at 120, Moshe Rabbeinu, relax, take it easy. It's your last day on this earth. You're going to the Olam It's going to Olam Haba. You're going to have Licht Gan Eden in just a little bit. Relax. No. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu was 120 years old and it's his last day on this earth, Vayelech Moshe. He's growing. He's doing. He's moving. And the Rebbe says the lesson for us is obvious. A Yid, a Jew, can never stop growing. No matter where I'm holding in life, no matter how old I am, and no matter how accomplished I may be, Vayelech Moshe. I always have to figure out how to move forward. This is a concept we've spoken about many times over our years of drashas together. The idea of constant and perpetual growth, to never stagnate, to never be happy where you are, but always to push yourself further. Halo, Vayelech Moshe. Always move, always grow, always accomplish, always journey. But I think that there's another yesod in here also, another profound idea, which is sometimes when we think about growth, we often assume that the only type of growth that is meaningful is sustainable growth. In other words, if I do something and it's kind of like a one-off thing, or I accept something upon myself but I don't perpetuate it, or I don't go ahead and keep with it, that any type of growth that is unsupported or unsustained and may only be episodic or momentary is not meaningful. And I think what you see from here from Moshe Rabbeinu is something amazing. Moshe Rabbeinu was going to die today. When you know you're going to die today, there's one thing that's clear, which is you're not going to be able to sustain the growth. Whatever you do today, you'll have today, but today is the end of the road. There's nothing more to do. But Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us that even episodic, even momentary growth, if you do something great, even if you can't sustain it, if you do something great, even if you can't perpetuate it, if you do something great and all you could do is make it happen today, that's meaningful also. Growth doesn't have to be meaningful. Obviously, the goal is to maintain it, and the goal is to sustain it, and the goal is to keep it going. But if you can't, if you manage to pull off a one-off chesed, a one-off mitzvah, one day you learn a little better, one day you daven a little bit better, and you don't follow up with it, you don't sustain it, that's still meaningful. Every act of growth, every act of connection, every act of spiritual service, even if it's unsustained, even if it's episodic, is meaningful. Vayelech Moshe. Moshe is not going to be able to sustain the growth of his last day in this world because he's going to die. This is his last day. But nevertheless, that growth is meaningful. And I think that this is such an incredibly important part of Aseret Yimei Tshuva. The Shulchan Aruch brings down that a person should take on certain chumras over the course of Aseret Yimei Tshuva. So, for example, one of the things the Shulchan Aruch brings down is that a person should be careful to only eat pas Yisrael. Right? So we know pas Yisrael means to only eat bread baked by a Jew. You could buy a loaf of bread in the supermarket that has a hechsher, but that's pas palter, that's bread that is produced by a non-Jewish baker, that's kosher certified. Pas Yisrael is bread produced by a Jew. So the Shulchan Aruch says that you should try to be careful with pas Yisrael over Aseret Yimei Tshuva. And it's so strange if you think about it, because first of all, out of all the things I have to work on, pas Yisrael is not like in the top 27, right? It's not really, I have so many things I actually have to work on, so many things I actually have to correct. That pas Yisrael, it's great, it's wonderful, but it's not normally something that seeps into my spiritual consciousness. Furthermore, if you're going to tell me that pas Yisrael is important, then go ahead, you should keep it forever. What do you mean keep it for Aseret Yimei Tshuva? What is this, a trick? Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to do something beautiful and wonderful and extra over Aseret Yimei Tshuva. You and I both know I'm not going to sustain it. Right after Yom Kippur, I'm going to eat what I was eating before. I'm going to do what I was doing before. I'm going to keep Chalav Yisrael over Aseret Yimei Tshuva. Great. And then afterwards, I have my ice cream ready in the freezer. I'm ready to go. What's going on over here? The Halacha is trying to sensitize us that even if you just take a small step like pas Yisrael over Aseret Yimei Tshuva, even though you know you're not going to sustain it, I know it's not. I know. I've got a whole pantry filled with non-pas Yisrael products. I've got a whole refrigerator filled with non-Chalav Yisrael products. So I know I'm only doing this for Aseret Yimei Tshuva. It's okay. Because in the world of spiritual growth, it doesn't have to be continuous or sustained in order for it to be meaningful. Episodic holiness is holiness as well. Momentary spiritual growth is spiritual growth as well. Even though it may dissipate, and even though you may not be able to perpetuate it, it's still meaningful in the moment that it occurs. And this is so incredibly important. Because sometimes in life, when we want to take on new things, whether it's something in our spirituality, maybe in our davening, in our learning, the question we often ask ourselves is, can I sustain it? Can I sustain it? Can I perpetuate it? And in our internal calculations, if I could sustain it, it's worth doing. If I can't sustain it, what's the point of starting something you can't sustain? And Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us that's false. The Shulchan Aruch teaches us that's false. Keeping pas Yisrael for a couple of days is something meaningful. Keeping Chalav Yisrael for a couple of days is something meaningful. And the Shulchan Aruch is choosing these things because, first of all, they're relatively easy. They're relatively innocuous. They don't create dramatic lifestyle changes for me. To not speak Lashon Hara for a couple of days, that's much more difficult. To be careful with Kavanah and Tefillah for a couple of days, that's much more difficult. But even small things that you take on momentarily, that you take on episodically, are meaningful as well. And this is this great, incredible last lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us. Ben Mea ve'esim shanim hayom. Today I'm going to die. It's my birthday, and it's also going to be my yahrzeit. But despite the fact that this is my last day, Vayelech Moshe, I will grow. Growth at every moment. Growth at every juncture. But just as important is growth is meaningful even if you can't sustain it. Don't shy away from opportunities because you don't know if they're sustainable. Don't shy away from taking things upon yourself because you convince yourself, I can't sustain it. What's the point of being episodically pious? You're either in or you're not. It's not true. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, most of us can't guarantee that we're going to be continuous or perpetual with anything. We don't really control all that much in life except for the present, right now. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, even if you can't guarantee that you're going to perpetuate the growth, Vayelech Moshe. Vayelech Moshe. Because momentary spiritual growth is meaningful as well. Momentary spiritual accomplishment is meaningful as well. Episodic piety is meaningful as well. During these days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where we are hopefully really thinking about the kind of people we want to be, the kind of lives we want to lead, and what we want the coming year to look like. Don't only sink your teeth into things you know that you could sustain, because chances are you'll lead a very under-accomplished year and a very under-fulfilling year. But if you take the opportunities, the spiritual opportunities of life as they come your way, eyes wide open, fully cognizant, I don't know if I could perpetuate it or not, but right now, the opportunity is here. Right now, the Vayelech Moshe is here. Right now, the Pas Yisrael. Right now, the Chalav Yisrael is here. Take it. Take it. Take advantage of the opportunities for growth as they present themselves. And don't worry about the future. Seize the opportunities for connection, for dveikus, and for growth now. Seize your Pas Yisrael. Seize your Chalav Yisrael. Seize your Vayelech Moshe, even when it's Meh ve'esim shanim anochi. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos, a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh, and a Gemar Chasima Tova.